Welcome to Top Advisor Marketing, where you will learn how to become a prolific online influencer, attract more ideal clients, and grow your practice. Brought to you by Top Advisor Podcasting, a done-for-you podcasting solution built just for trusted advisors. And now, your co-hosts of Top Advisor Marketing, Kirk Lowe and Matt Halloran.
Hello and welcome to the last of our little mini-series that we're doing on the 7 dynamic digital prospecting tactics. This is tactic number 7. If for some reason you haven't listened to the other 6 podcasts in this little mini-series, please make sure you go back and listen, because really everything kind of ends up here. This is the culmination of all of the ideas that we're talking about, because we're talking today about things becoming viral. Your goal, and viral in a good way, is to have at least one thing a year that is going to really just get people's attention. Just massive attention, massive traffic, massive likes and shares. Now, the best way to do this is to pay attention to what is going viral for other people. If it makes sense, consider expanding on that content, right, with papers, exercises, webinars, courses, podcasts, workshops. So if you see another financial advisor in your area all of a sudden just totally blow up, there's an article that people are just going bazonkos about, make sure that you do something with that material, because that means that your audience is craving that material. And then after you write it, Kirk, take it away with what you do after you've noticed that some of your stuff's going viral.
Like I always do, I'm gonna bookend your number 1 point.
Fantastic.
Before I jump into 2. Remember, if you've been listening to Matt and I for a while, we've talked probably on 10 occasions about Frank Maselli's viral post back from 2017, I think, that went to like 1,700 shares, I believe, something like that, or 1,700 likes and comments and 500 and something or 600 shares. Anyway, it was called from a letter from an advisor to a wholesaler. And not only did we have Frank join us for a podcast to talk about that, we also wrote a letter from a marketer to an advisor. I don't remember how well it did, but it did pretty good. So look for opportunities to piggyback on other people in a very professional way, and that can add a lot of value to finding viral content opportunities. So point number 2 is that when you do find those viral opportunities, plan ahead if you can, and create nurture sequence to build on that. So if somebody engages something that you think is a really important topic and you just leave it at that, you're missing an opportunity to go further. So if you want to do something simple, look for 2 to 5 email sequence. There are a lot of email marketing tools that can accommodate this type of triggering and email system. 2 to 6 is really simple. And if you can do nothing else, do a couple that show that you care, and put those out into the world, and then try to push them to something else you're doing. If you want to get a little more sophisticated, you could go from a 6 to 10 email sequence if there's really good engagement, or if the topic is complex and you want to break it down. And so that's a really important thing too, is that if a nurture sequence can be broken down into mini topics or conversations, and you can add value, it does a couple of things. One, it keeps your topic and you top of mind. The second thing is it better ensures that they consume that wisdom. So if you have a large complex topic that has maybe 10 mistakes, and you speak to each of the 10 mistakes in a nurture sequence, and you give them a little bit more, maybe than you even gave in the white paper, that shows value. And like, you know what? They added to the white paper here. Maybe I should read the other 9 emails that are going to come with the other 10 mistakes, or the other 9 mistakes, because there's going to be more value. So if you can find ways to get people more engaged, and you can create a lot of value, and you can better ensure that they're consuming that value, that can be a really important piece of the marketing puzzle that a nurture sequence, an email nurture sequence, can solve. And nurture sequences have been around for a long time in marketing. It's not new, but if you leverage it, it's one of those things that people don't leverage very often, and it's actually not that much work.
Now, I'm going to argue with you on that, dude. No, I'm kidding. But it's absolutely worth every piece of energy you put into that nurture sequence, because it's just a great opportunity for you to continue to drip on people. Number 3 is build content that supports or influences people to solve the problem you've identified. Some of our network between Kirk and I, we have something we call the Hive, which is people who provide services to advisors like you, and they're trusted people who we've built relationships with over many, many years. And something that they do very, very well that we think you should do, as long as it's okayed by your compliance, is tag people in the post. So, for instance, you're writing something again about end of life issues, let's just say, and you know that you have a really great estate planning attorney or a therapist or somebody who does downsizing, anything like that. Tag them in the post when you post it socially, because what ends up happening is it goes out to their entire network and also informs them that they've been tagged in something. So therefore, they are more likely to respond. It is absolutely fantastic. One of our Hive members, Sonia Dreisler, who's a genius at LinkedIn, she tags people pretty regularly in her posts, and she's getting thousands of people engaging with this stuff. And that's a pretty substantial traction, and it works very, very well. And then last but not least, if you have not joined LinkedIn groups that speak directly to your niche, whatever you want to call it, make sure that you are joining those groups. And when you have a great white paper, a great post, or great blog, or great podcast that speaks directly to that group, make sure that you post it in those communities. You're going to find that those closed communities, or even if they're open communities, if they're the right ones, can get you great traffic, great responses, and great interest.
So point number 4 is for tactic number 7 about creating viral content campaigns. Whenever you create a campaign and it starts to go viral, when you create viral content or content that goes viral, you want to fill it out so that it becomes a campaign and it's not just one viral thing that you didn't support. So all these ideas are trying to help you build more of a campaign than just, put one thing out and it did well, great, good for me, that was fun, but didn't turn it into more. So one of the things you want to do to help turn it into more is always have a call to action ready to go. So if something went viral and then you want to start following up with a nurture sequence, for instance, allow them to engage in other things. So build other things. So here's a white paper that speaks to this. Here's a podcast that we did on something directly related to this or something that was marginally related to this. Whatever you can create value by leading them to other things and getting them to engage in those things, that can drive a lot of experiential learning, which means that if everything they do with you, the more activity that you do, the more likely they are going to be to move along the sales cycle and say, hey, we need to talk and meet. So that's why engagement and activity is so important with these people. So here are a couple calls to action that you can use. You can get them to download a white paper. Again, we talked about this in tactic number 5, writing a white paper. And you can ask Gene or Dane for help. Go back to that tactic or that podcast and you'll see the information for those two people. You can tell them to listen to a podcast. You can ask a question or have an ask a question form. So have a form on your website. Hey, if you want to ask a question, or you can put the form at the end of a blog post or something else. There's ways to introduce the idea that if you have a question, feel free to ask me online and I will get back to you. Another one is an invitation to attend a webinar. So you don't have to say attend this specific webinar. You could in your social if it's upcoming and it's timely. What you could also do is go to our webinar registration page, because that'll always be up to date. So you don't have to worry about something not being evergreen, if that makes sense. So you can get somebody to come to a webinar. Another one that's kind of interesting is to invite somebody to take an assessment or to do a quiz or take an exercise that helps them gain a better understanding of something or helps them score themselves on either their knowledge or their state of financial circumstance by filling out this exercise or form. And I believe Dane from Advisor Research Group has some interesting little quiz, retirement quiz. And another company that we've been learning more about recently is Precise FP. And I believe that they will be on an upcoming podcast. And they have some really interesting questionnaires and little quizzes that you can take that are built into their software. So those are some neat opportunities. Precise FP is really interesting in that they have every one of their forms is part of a bigger picture or campaign, and it's already built in. So there's some neat things you can do with their software. So those are ways to create simple calls to actions that further engage and influence leads to want to become prospects. And that's an important part of building your viral content campaign.
To wrap up this entire mini-series on these 7 dynamic digital prospecting tactics, there's one thing that is consistent and one thing that absolutely has to happen, which is you have to start. You have to take one of these 7 things. You need to start posting more socially. You need to write a white paper, a blog, a podcast. Make sure that you're engaging with your audience. All of these different things all play into this larger thing that Kirk is talking about here, which is making something go viral and really making your content, your thought leadership, and everything that you really want to get out there to get it some legs or get it to go viral. So it is sequential. Go ahead and, just do short form posts on social media. See what people are starting to engage with, and then take it to the next level. Do a blog about it. And then if it's still getting more and more interest, do a podcast, then a white paper, then maybe you create a whole course workshop, right? But the way to do this is you always have to listen. The number one thing that we just were talking to Heather, who runs the social media department at SEI, her best piece of advice when we were talking with her at the convention last week or so was that advisors don't listen. You're still talking at people. You need to realize that social media is a conversation, and that's how things go viral. That's how digital prospecting tactics work. It can't just be one-way communication. It has to be something that you listen, you respond, show that you're listening and that you care, and then all of a sudden your stuff's going to get a lot more intense, it's going to get a lot better, and it's going to get a lot more engagement. Kirk, final thoughts.
I've got a great example of that. The other day, we're looking for a new VoIP system for us, for our company. And I just put out on LinkedIn looking for some help for that. And you wouldn't believe how many views we got. We're at 2,230 views for me asking a question about VoIP on LinkedIn. I mean, normally my posts get between 300 and 800, I think, every update that I provide. This did 2,200. Just think about that. And I was just asking for people's help. And the comments, how many comments? 14 comments. In like about 48 hours, I had 14 comments. That's pretty good engagement for a LinkedIn, and people like helping.
Sure.
And I got all kinds of great advice for us to go, and it wasn't a tactic. I was just, we needed help. And
we literally needed help on our VoIP. All right. Yes. Do you have any closing big picture kind of wrapping this thing up for us today, Kirk?
I remember we were recently at a conference together, Matt, and I took a break from our little setup there, booth, to go get a cup of tea. And I came back from my little adventure there, and I was a bit disappointed because I wanted to have tea. However, the water was not warm enough. And I made a comment to you, and I said, it's hard to make tea when you have warm water. And you said, man, that's a really wise saying. I was like, what?
I remember that.
And we decided at some point, and it'll be coming in the future, we're actually going to do a podcast about this idea, but I'm going to give you a little glimpse into it. If you're not doing the right things to create hot water in your practice from a marketing perspective, you're going to have a very hard time with meeting your expectations as far as outcomes of your marketing. If you want to do something, you have to put the work in. You have to make it so that it's the perfect conditions for you to succeed. It's not that difficult. If you don't have the time to create the perfect conditions to succeed, you have to find somebody to do it for you. If you are having trouble because people don't understand who you are, what you do, or who you work with, contact us about developing a brand foundation for you. Or find somebody who can help you develop a brand, enhance your website, and create some professional credibility. You need to have that done. That's step one. Step two is you have to, these days, marketing for financial advisors is all about thought leadership. You need to be an influencer. You need to be top of mind. How do you do that? You do it digitally. We believe that the best mechanism to do that these days is podcasting. Podcasting is something that every advisor can do successfully, if you're a good advisor. If you're a salesperson, that may be very difficult because your podcast will be all sales, and nobody will ever listen to a podcast about sales. But if you are an intelligent advisor who's been around for years, has a ton of value, wisdom, expertise, and experience to share with your audience, a podcast is not difficult to pull off. And if your podcast is not shared digitally, you have to do that too. So create your brand foundation, have a better website, have more instant credibility, which means writing a white paper, diagramming your financial planning process, things like that, and have a strong brand. If you want to create thought leadership, start podcasting, blogging, vlogging, something. And then you have to push that content out. And if you're pushing content out digitally through social media, for instance, and all you're ever talking about is yourself, you will not be successful. In fact, you're more likely to damage yourself, which is what most advisors do on social media. You have to share who you are as a person. You have to showcase personality, which is one of the reasons that podcasting is so exceptional. It's pretty tough to mess up a podcast, especially if you're getting our help doing it. Social is about engaging people in who you are as a person, what you contribute to society and or your community. It's about saying, sharing centers of influence that can add value. So here's my network. I hope they can add value to your world too. And it's also, and maybe lastly, about showcasing your expertise or opportunities for people to work with you or learn from you. A combination that's balanced of those things is what will give you success in the digital stratosphere. The last point is that the digital stratosphere, I just said, i.e. social media. I mean, email is part of the digital stratosphere, but it can't really go. People used to think, oh, somebody will forward my message to all our friends. Forget it. That doesn't happen. Digital media is the platform, and or podcast communities where people are looking for consumable content, especially if they're looking for consumable financial content, which you'll be providing there. So anyway, end of point. You got to take care of that stuff.
Got it. All right. Well, this was our mini-series on the 7 dynamic digital prospecting tactics. For everybody at Top Advisor Marketing, this is Matt Halloran. I want to thank everybody for listening to our mini-series here. And if there's a mini-series that you would like us to talk about, or a specific podcast topic when it comes to marketing, branding, social podcasting, or anything along those lines, make sure you just reach out to us on social and say, hey, Kirk, I would love to hear you guys talk about blankety blank. We'd be more than happy to do it because guess what? Listening is the key to a successful social media campaign. And we'll see you guys on the other side of the mic very soon.
Are you ready to change the way you communicate with your clients? Are you tired of being the best kept secret in your area? Learn how to become a prolific online influencer, attract more ideal clients, and grow your business. Contact us today and see what the power of podcasting can do for your business. Click on the Contact Us link on our website at topadvisormarketing.com and set up a call to learn more. Follow us on LinkedIn and Facebook for more updates and information.